Hello YouTube, and welcome to the Breakfast Club with Got That Funk. Thank you for joining me. I know I'm way late with my video this week. I apologize for that. Stuff. Anyway, on Thursday I was a bit busy socially, but also with all the developments that were unfolding with the Michael Cohen and Manafort situations back home. I was sort of thinking about maybe leaving it for a day or so anyways to see how events unfolded, to see how Congress might react to the fact that the president has been directly implicated in a federal crime. And to my astonishment, and maybe I shouldn't be so surprised considering everything else Trump's gotten away with so far, Congress hasn't said a fucking thing about it, not collectively anyway. I find it remarkable how many times Trump transgresses what would be or what would have been boundaries for any preceding president prior to President Trump. He's broken so many norms as well as rules and conventions that it's difficult really to kind of properly articulate how far away from normal politics actually is at the moment in the USA. And this is really unfortunate. I think there's so much desensitization. You know, there's certain people on the right, some of them will be watching this video right now, who follow me on Twitter, and they very much think that people like me are overreacting. We're hyping it up. You know, there's no crisis. What crisis? You know, and all that kind of shit. To which I say, I'm sorry, if you name a Democratic president in your own lifetime that would have survived without some talk in Congress of impeachment when the news broke that they were implicated in a felony, multiple felonies, and that those felonies directly involved their getting into the White House in the first place. I mean, come on, a scandal doesn't really get any steeper than that. And yet, Republicans in the Senate, Republicans in the House of Representatives, fucking crickets, not a word. Now, that might not be so surprising. Like I say, they've let President Trump get away with everything. They are Trump's main enablers. They are possibly directly complicit in certain corruption, which might, come out later. And I might talk more about that in a minute. But what really is actually surprising is that the Democrats are, for some reason, deciding to sort of wait it out and see how things develop. Things have developed. The fucking fruit is fucking ripe, okay? It's time to pick a side. It's time to really recognize that the emperor has no clothes. He's surrounded himself with criminals because he was a criminal himself. And the fact that Congress doesn't even mention at this point that they are considering impeachment is really troubling. It's really disturbing. There's so many significant things going on right now in politics. The stakes are really high. And I mentioned this on Twitter the other day, but if I were the Iranian government, I would be really nervous right now, because Trump knows that he's in hot water. Not only with Michael Cohen and Manafort getting, found guilty this week, but also the fact that some of his other people, close confidants of Trump's, have decided to turn state's evidence with being granted immunity from prosecution for, divulging what they know. So the noose is tightening around Trump's neck, and, Trump has already shown himself to be pretty unstable in terms of how he reacts to news events and also people's opinions and so forth. And there literally isn't any telling what President Trump might do if he really thought that they're just about to come and get him, as it were. I don't mean that literally, but, figuratively speaking, if he really thought that Congress was going to take that jump. There's no telling what he might do. I remember in 1998 when the Monica Lewinsky scandal was in full flare. Bill Clinton decided to drop a few bombs on a factory that they said was producing some kind of nerve agent for chemical weapons or something like that in Sudan. And it turned out to be a commercial factory that made pharmaceutical products. So Bill Clinton, wasted a few $1 million throwing some really expensive weapons at someone else's factory in a sovereign country, just because he was trying to distract the news cycle away from his scandal with his sexual abuse of Monica Lewinsky. Lots of people have made the point that, if that kind of a scandal is enough to rock the presidency and actually get Bill Clinton impeached by Congress, I mean, they did put forward impeachment. He survived it, of course, in office. But the bottom line is they did impeach the president, and but he did survive the final vote. They're not even giving that, and that was for what? Lying under oath. Perjury was the main charge. And let's make no bones about it. Bill Clinton was guilty. I personally read the entire Starr report, and it's absolutely clear that Bill Clinton lied under oath. And that being the case, I personally think that Bill Clinton should have resigned back in the late 90s, because you can't be president, or you shouldn't be able to be president of the United States and commit a crime like perjury. If I fucking go to court and commit perjury, they're going to put me in jail for, at the very least, contempt of court, if not perjury itself. So, and I think the same standards should apply for people in high office. In fact, I would argue that you should probably apply higher standards for people in public service to obey the law. After all, they're the ones in charge of maintaining and upholding the law. So there's that. The inaction of Congress is kind of getting to a point where we're not going to be able to forgive any of them. I mean, everyone's hoping for a blue wave. Not everyone, of course, but there's a lot of people sort of banking on a blue wave come November, as if a Democratic-controlled Congress can save us from this mess. And it might be true that there are people in Congress who are trying to ride it out because the election is so close. They're trying to see sort of, if they can get that Democratic majority in the House and move forward on articles of impeachment for the president. I don't think you need to wait that long. You might say that, Republicans won't let it happen because they control the House and Senate right now. And the thing is, you got to look this thing in the face. We don't really yet know about the extent to which Trump might have conspired with the Russians against the United States in order to win the election. But it seems pretty obvious that he's committed quite a lot of financial crimes, which all by themselves should make him ineligible for the presidency, at least as far as carrying on as president is concerned. And if it turns out that he won the election because he broke campaign finance laws and basically did other things to manipulate public opinion, which were in fact illegal to do those things. If those things were illegal and he did illegal things to obtain the presidency, his entire presidency should be annulled. It should be considered illegitimate. Now, if such a drastic situation were to unfold, and I personally consider it highly unlikely, but if it were to unfold that they decided that Trump's presidency was illegitimate, it would imply as well, therefore, that Mike Pence as vice president is also illegitimate. And it's my personal opinion that if that happened, that the presidency would then go to Paul Ryan, as is articulated in the 25th Amendment of the Constitution, as the sort of chain of succession of command would go. But I know for a fact there'd be an awful lot of people out in the country who say that, who would say that Hillary Clinton should be installed as president since she would have won the election. I understand that line of thinking. I don't agree with it. I don't agree with it not because I don't want Hillary to be president as such. I just think that whatever happens, whatever transpires, because we would be in a constitutional crisis, anyway. We already are, for that matter, and I might talk more about that in a minute. But the bottom line is you can't make shit up. You can't make the laws up. The Constitution is there, and it says what it says. And the nearest estimation, as far as I can tell, of where we would go if the presidency, the election of the president was considered invalid, would be to go straight to the Speaker of the House, and that is Paul Ryan. as much as I detest Paul Ryan as a politician, at least he's only going to be Speaker of the House for another 2 years or whatever. But if he were to take over as president, of course, he would have then the opportunity to run for another term as president. And voters could judge accordingly at that time based on what he did for the 2 years. Kind of like what happened to Gerald Ford, I suppose. And we all know how well that went for him in 1976. Anyway, we are in a constitutional clusterfuck right this minute, okay? The president is implicated in felonies. How he thinks he can carry on and do his job effectively with all of this stuff going on, you know, is a testament to Trump's bravado and his denial about the reality of his own situation. And I don't think it can continue. I seen on Twitter last week, some dummy was mentioning that, you know, if things get out of hand and Congress won't sort of step up, someone said, oh, you know, they hope that the military would come in and take control, which is literally the worst possible resolution to the crisis of Donald Trump, because the whole point of having a military that is subservient to a civilian government in a democracy is that the government is run by civilians. My next door neighbor seems to be hoovering their backyard, or maybe mowing the lawn. So I am going to have to end this video now. I look forward to an interesting comment section down below. Damn it. And I'll see you guys again next week. Thanks. Peace.